All right, hello everyone. My name is Clint Brown, and this is a video series that I'm recording during Global Entrepreneurship Week 2019. I've invited my friend Bruce Watley on as a panelist to talk about one of the four major topics happening with Global Entrepreneurship Week around the planet. This one in particular is around education, so you can look up the hashtag GEW Education, and you will see that all over Twitter and Instagram right now. I will tell you, Instagram's a little more interesting this week than Twitter. Twitter's got a lot going on, but it's happening in so many places. Most of the feed is not in English right now. So if you speak multiple languages, jump on Twitter. If you're monolingual like me, you might want to stick to the Instagram so you can navigate it. But I was able to get a hold of Bruce and his schedule. Bruce is a professor, an associate professor at the local university here called University of Sioux Falls. We are broadcasting this from Sioux Falls, South Dakota here in North America. And so Bruce is going to be my resident expert on education. He certainly knows a lot more than I do. And so about how education engages entrepreneurship. Bruce, would you be willing to give people just a little bit of your background? And then we're going to dive into some of the questions.
Yeah, I've been a entrepreneur for about 20 plus years in the sporting goods industry prior to entering higher ed. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be a professor, I probably would have laughed. That it really wasn't even on my radar. Moved here to Sioux Falls, started teaching a few classes as an adjunct, thoroughly enjoyed bringing that practical experience into the classroom to look at engaging students, to talk a little bit about theory, but also the practical application of concepts. And enjoyed it so much, I decided to go back to school for a Ph.D. in organizational leadership, human resource development, studied innovation and creativity, and just recently finished a postgraduate diploma in strategy and innovation from the University of Oxford in England. So again, kind of a non-traditional career path into higher ed, but have certainly enjoyed my time here.
What drew you from the ranks of entrepreneurship? Did you sell a business, or what happened that sort of got you out of that game and into the higher ed game?
Yeah, I basically sold the last business in 2007 and was kind of at a point. I was tired of being an entrepreneur. All of the responsibilities that look at going along with it as it relates to, revenue generation, growth, being a steward of the employees, making sure that their lives are taken care of. And anyway, I just decided I needed a break. And so I spent a couple of years soul searching and really deciding what's that next step for my life. And it seemed like teaching was a good opportunity for a semi-retired entrepreneur who didn't want to be an entrepreneur anymore.
Yeah, no, I think, and I want to say thank you for being an industry person, a veteran, and coming into higher ed. And I would think many people who went to college, some of their favorite professors were those who had street skills, who were practitioners. And you sort of smelled it when you walked in the room, like, this person's been around the block. They know what they're talking about. They run a business for a while. There's a sort of practicality to it. So I really appreciate that you're giving the students the opportunity to experience that from having the emotional understanding of some of the words you're throwing out there. Can you help us at maybe, so let's start up at a high level. Help me understand the relationship that higher ed in your organization has with entrepreneurship, because you have an entrepreneurship, either major, minor, or a focus, I believe, at the university right now.
Yeah, correct. And basically what we do is we look at taking an interdisciplinary approach with entrepreneurship, that when you look at entrepreneurship, it's not just a business discipline, that if you take a look at the 8 million plus jobs that are out there of the individuals that call themselves entrepreneurs or self-employed, they come from all walks of life. Whether you're a writer, you're an entrepreneur if you're looking at getting your work published. If you are involved in a nonprofit organization to look at taking care of social concerns, you're an entrepreneur. So I think from a discipline standpoint, it just simply entrepreneurship lends itself well to help people take something that they're passionate about and create a profession.
Yeah, and maybe, and just so we're clear on terminology, I think where we get, obviously in this day and age, as we are experiencing in real time in South Dakota, sometimes word choice matters.
Yeah.
This week politically, but I think on entrepreneurship, I think that there's interesting things that happen in South Dakota in particular. One, I think that a lot of people see themselves as a small business owner first, if they even identify as that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a farmer might see himself as a farmer, but not a small business owner, even though he or she very much owns a business.
Correct.
Beyond that, they may be at the place where they're ready to accept or understand the term entrepreneur, which is sort of an updated hat that they're wearing that has better connotations to it, maybe towards risk-taking and growth, but has wrapped within a business ownership. And what I'm hearing you say feels like it's stepping one step further more into the entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial approach.
Correct.
Where the way that maybe a classic in my lifetime tech entrepreneur has tackled a world problem, you're saying that could be deployed at a policy level or at a teaching level. And it doesn't have to be that you hang out a shingle and have a boutique downtown.
Yeah, exactly. That pretty much there are two types of universities. You have pushing universities and helping universities in the context of entrepreneurship. When you look at the pushing universities, those are the ones that look at really focusing on small business startup. So again, the accelerators, the incubators, with the end goal of taking the student through a process to look at having a business that they're actually starting. Other universities are considered helping universities, where they look at developing the entrepreneurial mindset. We take a look at the different skill sets that are involved with being an entrepreneur, opportunity recognition and opportunity, exploitation. You take a look at the problem-solving ability, networking, collaboration. Again, that the helping universities look at developing the students so that they can look at having that entrepreneurial mindset. And again, look at starting a business, whether it's now or whether it's 10 or 15 years down the road, that they have that ability to look at engaging in those kind of behaviors.
I wonder, how do you navigate? Let me tell you what I hear at the street level from fellow entrepreneurs, and that's sort of the idea that you can go to school to learn to be an entrepreneur sort of doesn't. They can't map those two together. They think that you go to school to do one thing, and entrepreneurship is this other sort of manifestation of your life. And so they have a hard time attaching those two together. They might even think that, and I was just talking with someone an hour ago about talking to you, and they said, it seems like that they're more preparing bank managers than they are entrepreneurs. Help me unpack that sort of sentiment, or have a better, more well-rounded view of what that looks like from the university level.
Yeah, well, in pretty much any entrepreneurship program that you would look at getting involved in or seeing, at the core of it is experiential learning and looking at providing students with autonomy as it relates to the project or idea that they want to look at working with. In a lot of business schools, there's a rigid program that you look at following that leads to kind of a desired outcome. As we both know, entrepreneurship is a fluid process, and a lot of autonomy needs to be involved, a lot of self-directedness. So within our program, we look at basically letting the students design kind of their curriculum and their approach to working with entrepreneurship. In an innovation and problem solving class, I could look at telling the students that you're going to look at working on solving, this particular problem or this social issue. But instead, if they look at having that intrinsic motivation, they're going to be spending a lot more time working on the project and be able to look at applying a lot of the concepts that we present to them, that they have something tangible when they look at leaving the class.
Yeah. What are some, and I appreciate that sort of delineation there. What are some of the ways that you think that universities are able to give students a better grasp of what it means to be the small business owner, to hang out a shingle, if that's something that they're sort of noodling and they think, well, I'm not going into pre-med, or I'm going to take this forward and to have this sort of interdisciplinary mindset or this entrepreneurial thinking, but they think they got the ish that maybe they want to take over their parents' business, buy a business, start a business. How do you help expose them to the realities of that?
Well, I think first and foremost is bringing individuals into the classroom outside of higher education that have actually experienced it to look at sharing those stories. What were some of the heartaches or some of the experiences that they've had? One of the things that we do within the entrepreneurship program is to have students actually go out and interview an entrepreneur. To look at building a network and connecting, to look at asking those questions so that they can learn more on a specific area that they're interested in.
Right. Okay, and I've experienced that. I mean, I maybe a bit of a leading question there. I think I've been brought in a few times to speak. I'm wondering also, like, how does, if we're to look at education at large, if we zoomed out a bit from the university level, how education in a community engages entrepreneurs could be very different. It could be something through the tech school around here that might be like a Southeast Technical Institute. It could be something through makerspaces. It could be early childhood development. Is there any sort of cross-pollination with you educators on what that looks like, or is that emerging, or are we before that around here?
I would say it's emerging. One of the trends is on-demand education.
Yeah.
So, as an entrepreneur, maybe you don't want to look at engaging in all of the classes that would be in a traditional business school, but there's a particular problem within your organization that you're, as an entrepreneur that you're working in, that you want to look at having some knowledge so that you can look at actually applying it in real time. I see that being kind of a trend that just not in entrepreneurship education, but in education in general, that we're going to look at seeing on-demand education, modular education, where students would look at taking, say, a series of 6 classes or a series of 3 classes, look at applying that content and in their work, and then over time being able to look at coming back and earning and learning more, earning more credits, and that could be applied to a degree.
What do you think are some of the things, Bruce, that it might be reasonable for us to see in a community like Sioux Falls, maybe over the next decade, that are a bridge between education and entrepreneurship? What do you think might happen or could be in the works?
Yeah, I would see having a more connectedness through maybe apprenticeships.
Okay.
Students could look at actually coming alongside, again, on more so than an internship. But again, we take a look at medieval times. When apprenticeships were in place, it was to look at learning a career. And to look at developing specific skill sets. And I see more of a trend going toward apprenticeships and mentoring students that are interested in not only entrepreneurship, but in other business disciplines and other disciplines within the university system.
One missed opportunity I feel like around here, and this is just from my perspective, right? Everyone's got their own sort of myopic view of the world. But I feel like we have in Sioux Falls a distinct opportunity where there are lots of amazing businesses that the owner is going to age out. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're 40 years old and they're just done with it, or maybe they're 72 years old and they're done with it. And it's not going to go to anybody. And I think that if there was some hand-holding, I could see a real honest play between a business owner who says, in the next 5 years, I don't want to own this mechanic shop anymore. I don't want to own this law firm anymore, or restaurant. Their kids don't want it, which often is when they realize like it's just going to go away. Mm-hmm. And a budding young entrepreneur could come along and through some deep apprenticeship with that owner and some hand-holding from a university or educational body sort of sticking on some additional skill sets, you could have some transitions of some great businesses.
Yeah.
I see that, like, what happens? They just end. They end, and it's like, oh, geez, some other young person's going to come along and try to recreate what this person's already figured out over the last 20 years and literally could just be given a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the value that this, apprenticeship could look at bringing between the entrepreneurship community and higher ed.
Is there anything that you think that we're missing in that space between education and entrepreneurship around here? If you could just get everybody in the room and be like, guys, listen, if you just take my word for this, we could just move forward and this could be better. Is there anything that you see as you travel, as you study, as you engage with your peers that you think, this is slow, but that we could benefit from this?
Yeah, what I think our community could actually benefit from is to look at kind of creating a partnership between the community and an educational consortium, if you call it that, where a lot of times universities tend to look at putting their stakes in the ground and very territorial. But could some partnerships within the community be created between other universities, the school district, the tech schools, to look at creating this consortium where resources could be pooled to look at creating a very vibrant opportunity for individuals that are interested in entrepreneurship, going all the way from the high school level, junior high and high school level, to look at nurturing those students that are interested in it, to create a place where ideas could be manifested, developed, and grown, where the community benefits from that economic development piece by people banding together and organizations banding together for a common cause.
And is that it? Does that happen in other communities in a way that you could point to?
No, not really. None that I've seen. And I personally, I think it could be kind of a game changer for the region to look at, again, having kind of this educational consortium coming alongside with the community.
I like that idea. I mean, I think it's going to take some creative new approaches and some viewing of fluidity of the lines. Yeah. Because I agree. I think if it's territorial or siloed, in our community, maybe it's either an Augie program or a USF program or an STI program, or DSU. I don't know, that the higher eds might, circle around their camp.
Yeah.
And I think that the reality is that adult learners, especially once they get into entrepreneurship, are forced into a fluid experience of learning where they can learn, partnering with who they can partner, because they're trying to survive.
Yeah.
They're not super concerned about what sweatshirt they're wearing to get there. Very interesting. I'm wondering our state has some opportunities in entrepreneurship. One of those being the number of women business owners. We had an article come out a few months ago. I was speaking with the folks over at the SBA, pulling some of their most recent data, and based on some rough calculations, which I'm happy to post online if anybody wants to see them, our state, in order to be average, if we wanted to be number 24 or 25 in the US, we didn't take any businesses from men, we'd have to add over 12,000 small businesses owned by women just to be average. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
How do universities, how do they help equip a student body coming up where they might be in a state that, how do you wrestle with something like that? That we have a real opportunity for women to jump into that, entrepreneurship. And the other thing is that in the state of South Dakota, our women entrepreneurs who do play the game are very good at it.
Yeah.
We typically rank in the top 5 for growth and that sort of thing. And I feel like it's a big opportunity for young ladies coming up through the ranks. How do you wrestle with that?
Yeah, well, in fact, it's something that we have wrestled with. We take a look at our entrepreneurship program. We're seeing more diversity within the program itself, more and more women participating within the entrepreneurship program. And previously, it was primarily taught by male entrepreneurs. And so we really saw a need to look at bringing in female entrepreneurs, those women that have been out there and experienced it and done it, so that they could look at actually relating to these up and coming female entrepreneurs within the program. So we've hired as adjuncts some local female entrepreneurs to come in and look at facilitating classes so that we could provide a more diverse background from faculty that interact with the students, as well as the mentorship opportunities that could be available as well.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to jump to the most recent comment. I don't know if you can see the comments that are coming through. Shelley Gaddis, who I believe has taught a few sections for you guys, is commenting. Yeah. She says, create space for women entrepreneurs to mentor through some sort of subsidized fashion at the university level. I think that's sort of what you're dancing with here, is how does that look? I think that in any arena, people need to see themselves in the future to believe that they can do it, right? You look at a young inner city kid that might look at a pro athlete and say, he or she looks like me. He or she came from here. I can do it because they did it.
Yeah.
And I think that in our state, I have 3 daughters. I desperately try to get them around women entrepreneurs who are playing the game, so that it's a normal category in their mind, right? It's a normal option. I don't know what they're going to decide to do in life, but it's not some far off thing that these mystical creatures are successful at. And so I think it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how we figure that out. Yeah. If we're 12,000 short, Bruce, we've got a lot of work. Even if South Dakota did their percent, which is about 20%, we would have to open a business owned by a woman every day for the next decade.
Yeah.
To get caught up. That's a lot of work. So it'll be interesting to see where universities are able to come with their broad shoulders and support that. Just above that comment, you see there's a comment from Kate. It says, Bruce, what type of experiential activities do you like to conduct in class? Which you talked on a minute ago. I think she's commenting on that.
Okay.
Do you have any courses where the whole course is experiential? Can you address that?
Yeah, our innovation and problem solving class that we look at taking, it's the foundational course for the entrepreneurship program. Students are given a number of exercises that they look at completing that are experiential in nature. We've divided the course into kind of 2 8-week sessions. The first focuses on human-centric design. So students have to look at going out and engaging in observational research. They have to look at engaging in interviewing and talking to individuals that are experiencing problems or issues to kind of get to the root cause and look at taking those comments and incorporating it into a solution based around, again, that information that they've collected. The second half is a process model that looks at working, identifying a problem, clearly understanding it all the way through an implementation phase. So the whole class itself is really designed from an experiential nature. It's kind of a flipped classroom where students are engaging in the learning outside of the traditional classroom, but when they come to class, they're working on these activities. And instead of being kind of the sage on the stage, I'm a guide on the side, where I look at mentoring and assisting and refining the ideas that the students are actually working on.
I really appreciate that, because back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was going to college, I had started a business and I was turning in client projects as school projects because I was just getting them to align. If I could get paid for them, I was paying for college out of pocket. And then I had the final semester of college, there was a mandatory 1-semester internship with a large company. Mm-hmm. And I also had a huge client project on the table. So I went for the client project. Yeah. And I remember one of the university professors going to the deans and saying, look, can't we take this guy? This is what we're trying to accomplish. This kid's doing what we want to have done. Can't he turn in this stuff? And they were just like, absolutely not. See, and he has to take this thing and check this box, or we're not. And I was the top of the class too. And I'm like, you're going to lose one of your best students. I'm doing everything you told me I need to do. I'm doing in real time. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that universities are a little more understanding of sort of the options as their students move forward.
Yeah. And, from time to time, if we work on a project, for example, in class that I've kind of outlined, and a student has a different approach or a different idea that they want to look at working with that gets to the same outcome, I'm fine with that. I tell the students, great. If there's a project you're working on that doesn't necessarily fit with kind of the direction we're headed, but it hits the learning outcome, great. And I think more flexibility into the programs need, just at higher ed in general, need to look at taking more of a student-centric approach to learning rather than a teacher-centered approach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's migration towards that. I mean, I think as we become more of a human-centered design world, there's going to be a generation of kids coming up expect that that's the experience. How do we go the other direction? How do we get entrepreneurs engaging with more students, hiring more students, messing with more students in their business as either interns or apprentices or employees, ad hoc employees or something like that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is building some networking opportunities. Look at coinciding with schedules. A lot of times during the day, there's a lot of entrepreneurship networking events that occur that conflict with when students would actually, they're in the classroom rather than networking. So having those opportunities outside of class time from university standpoint could look at helping. Finding opportunities for students to look at engaging, through, having a coffee, with an entrepreneur in a field that they're interested in learning more about, could look at helping that as well.
One idea I'm going to throw at you, and I don't know that you're the person that has the ability to pull the trigger on this, but I think that one thing that business owners are always looking for is the space to gather. And I think that a place like your Cleveland Center, which is very, very nice, you could host things that the business community already gathers, right? They might gather for beer or a chamber event or coffee or whatever they gather for, but just asking, say, gather on campus. We've got Fridays are pretty low key in the building, and we have additional space. We'd love for you to come up on the property and do what you're normally doing, but doing around students. And I'm going to have a couple students pop in and check it out.
Yeah. I also think having practitioners actually come into the university setting to look at delivering some workshops, to look at talking about, what they do, rather than hear it from somebody that's an academic. But again, having these non-academics, these practitioners look at coming in and again, kind of sharing their expertise and sharing their knowledge, on a monthly basis, could be something.
I think you and I should put together a series for that, Bruce, because I think that one of the things that entrepreneurs realize after they're in the game is that they're also in the business of authority building within their market, within their competitors, within their respective community. And presenting at a local university is a great way to sort of tiptoe into that, where there's a real exchange of value. Maybe the students are a little more forgiving of you not being a professional presenter, but you're also not getting paid anything other than maybe a coffee mug or a glass of coffee. And then you get the opportunity to present at a university and students can engage with you. I say yes every single time you guys ask, and I have for years, because
and we appreciate that.
I meet such interesting kids, and I meet interesting professors. There's always a student or two afterwards who comes up and asks really great questions. So for me, it's, why wouldn't I, spend 1 hour to go over there and engage with whoever's up and coming. And several of those people have gone on to be my employees and business peers in my community. Some of them I work alongside. And even though a few years ago they were just a student. So it's a way to get some early relationship building.
Yep, definitely.
Anything else we need to, Bruce, this has been meaty. We're only 30 minutes in and we have covered a lot of things. Is there anything else that you think that would, I sent you over the stuff for the Global Entrepreneurship Week and what it's looking at with higher ed. Is there anything else you think that we need to address or that isn't discussed that it's worthy of discussion when it comes to education and entrepreneurship?
Well, I think, again, one of the future trends that we could look at seeing is more of embedded nature of entrepreneurship within the liberal arts.
Okay.
And that's kind of a trend that I see on the horizon, especially for liberal arts universities. We take a look at back in the 1950s and 60s, when students were graduating, 1 in 5 degrees that were issued were in entrepreneurship, were in the liberal arts. So you're looking at 20%. We fast forward to today, 1 in 20 degrees issued are in the liberal arts. And what we're seeing, and again, this is research that's been done, but what we're seeing is more of students wanting to look at engaging in vocational type education, business education, nursing, other types of tangible forms of education. So I think that showing entrepreneurship as being relevant to the liberal arts, basically the literature has said that a liberal entrepreneurship is kind of the manifestation of the liberal arts education. You take a look at the outcomes of problem solving, research, writing, collaboration, team building, all of those things that are valued in a liberal arts education can be seen in entrepreneurship. And so I think finding a way to look at embedding the entrepreneurial mindset into the liberal arts helps provide some relevance. And there's 2 differing views. Entrepreneurship should be kind of into its own and away from the liberal arts. And there are others that believe that it should be merged with the liberal arts. And I think from time to time, you could look at with an entrepreneurial with entrepreneurship class within the liberal arts, you can bring the liberal arts into it. You can look at talking about Thomas Edison and creativity. You can look at take a look at the historical approach as it relates to innovation and how that has been a game changer for different economies around the world.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a way to look at bridging that gap.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think that we like oversimplified definitions of everything, and we like nice little clean silos. And I think there's much more of a spectrum here of what this looks like. And I think that there are, you look at what our city's doing with their innovation work. Mm-hmm. They're needing people who think like entrepreneurs. Our mayor happens to be one, to get in there and figure out how to fix an ailing bus system. It takes some pretty dynamic, creative problem solving and an understanding of humans. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have an end user misalignment that is not just a business pro forma problem.
Yeah, and there's a huge value in having that liberal arts education and being able to look at kind of materializing it in, again, these outcomes that we're talking about. A huge value between, again, the exposure to these different disciplines and being able to look at integrating that into problem solving, into writing, into, we can look at talking about Shakespeare. How did he go about marketing his plays? How was Shakespeare an entrepreneur? So again, I think there's a lot that can be brought into the conversation.
Well, awesome. I'm super excited to see where that emerges and where that's even deployed down in the younger students. Mm-hmm. I know some of the high schools are dabbling with these solutions. I know that even some of the middle schools have programs where they're exposing young people to some of these challenges and problems. And I think there's a cohort of kids coming up that are facing a set of global predicaments that are going to take some really deep understanding of global humanity. And some great problem solving and business and commerce and economics as they sort of rise to the occasion here in the next 10 years. So it's going to be really interesting to see what this looks like over the next decade.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, Bruce. Well, I so much appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll run into you again soon or have the opportunity to talk to one of your classes. If anybody's interested in engaging with your program, is it best to reach out to you through LinkedIn or maybe the university website? What works best for you?
LinkedIn or the university website, either would work. So
you just look for Bruce Watley over at the University of Sioux Falls, either on LinkedIn or just Google it. He'll come right up, and they can engage with you there and see what you've got going on.
Yeah, perfect. And we do have an innovation showcase that's going on this week.
That's right.
On Thursday.
I'm excited about that. So I'll make sure that gets marketed along with this. And if you're watching the replay, maybe you look for some pictures online as Bruce and his students present some of their work to the community. Bruce, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
On a busy Tuesday morning, and I hope to chat with you soon.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.